but I want to welcome everyone today, and I'm thankful to see everyone on this January day. We're so fortunate to have Dr. Monica Brooks with us, Dr. Monica Garcia Brooks. She is the Associate Vice President for Online Learning and Dean of Libraries in her 26th year as part of Marshall University family. She's active in the West Virginia's academic libraries for over 30 years. She's a past president of the West Virginia Library Association and currently serves as Marshall's representative to the National Quality Matters Program, West Virginia Virtual Learning Network, and West Virginia Electronic Resources Statewide Library Consortium. She is very proud to be a founding faculty member for the West Virginia Remote Online Collaborative Knowledge System, West Virginia Rocks, sponsored by the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission to aid returning students in completing their Regents Bachelor of Arts degrees in an accelerated online format. In addition to library science, curriculum development, and campus copyright compliance, she has fun personal projects which include her family's circus, La Carpa Garcia, 1914 to 1947, and the 1933 Chicago World's Fair Homes of Tomorrow exhibition. So welcome, Monica, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to turn everything over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Gosh, that made me tired listening to all that. But as those of you who are faculty and staff emeritus from Marshall University know that we all wear many, many hats. Many of those hats, of course, bring me lots of joy because they're things that I love to do, especially for the benefit of our students, our faculty, and the community here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint for you guys. And Elizabeth, I think you need to give me permission to do that.
Okay, just a second. Oh,
okay.
Here we go. I got it right here. Just a second. Okay, does that work?
All right, let's take a look here. Sure does. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Technology. There we go. Please do let me know if you cannot see this. And Elizabeth, if you mind terribly monitoring the chat, I am absolutely open for questions during the presentation. If there's something that you want to know while we're on it, please don't hesitate to let Elizabeth know. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. I got to say, I was very excited about this because I don't get to do fun things like this as often as I would like to. And of course, many of you are aware already, and thank you for the reading of my biography that made me tired. I started my career as a professional librarian in West Virginia. I'm actually not a native Huntingtonian, but I have now lived in Huntington more than I've lived anywhere else in the state of West Virginia. And it is really, really fun to talk about some of the things that we can do with the historical collections right here on the campus of Marshall University. So today I just wanted to, of course, I'm an educator, so we have our little learning outcome today. But I was hoping that we could touch a little bit on some of the historic locations in Huntington, and also talk about some of the collections that we have, namely an amazing collection that we acquired from the Huntington Herald-Dispatch very recently. In fact, it was just this past summer that we received this wonderful collection that you'll learn more about. And also I wanted to kind of tie that into the Clio app because that's also an effort that came from Marshall University faculty in the history department, Dr. David Trowbridge. And the library has worked with him over the years to help promote and add content to that app. So it's pretty cool and a great way to share information. So, okay, I have to just say 30 plus years ago because I can't even believe it's been 3 decades that I've been in the library profession. But when I was in library school in the 80s, I recall very, very vividly that the professors and the literature were essentially predicting the demise of the profession. They were hearkening the harbinger of evil, the paperless library, because computers were brand new and the internet was starting to become more prevalent, and accessible to the layperson. And they were essentially warning us that, we made a huge mistake getting into the field when we did because there won't be a need for librarians in 30 years. Wow, nothing can be further from the case. In fact, librarians are needed more than ever before because, how is this born digital content going to get actually digitized, or if it's born digital, how is it going to get curated or indexed or placed in some format that it can be retrieved again. So librarians have been on the forefront of that process for digital content, or they have also been digitizing content that they're able to make sure that it is preserved forever and accessible to more people out there in the world. So I'm thrilled. Also, from my standpoint as a reference librarian or former reference librarian, it's essential to educate our users on how to utilize this material. And that's kind of what I'm doing today, because I'm hoping you'll take advantage of some of our resources. So, here we are in the city of Huntington, named after our Collis P. Huntington historical figure. And I thought this quote was kind of fun because sometimes I feel this way. But knowing more about our local area has just been really exciting, because with the acquisition of this amazing collection, and I'm sure many of you know, because it was publicized quite extensively, that the Herald-Dispatch is no longer in the building downtown. They moved their entire office operation and their journalists to a building on the other side of, not too terribly far, but on the other side of town essentially, and is no longer right downtown. So I thought, okay, well, this is cool. Let me see if I can find some fun pictures that kind of capture what was happening. And thanks to Jim Casto, who is an amazing journalist himself and historian, we have several excellent articles that kind of chronicle what happened there, including some great photographs that I'm aware that he did obtain from the Herald-Dispatch collection, of which we are talking about today. So it's kind of cool to be able to find materials immediately that describe exactly what happened and when, and also the reason why we obtained this collection. So I know many of you are affiliated with the university in your past careers or your current affiliations, and so you probably walk by the Morrow Library on a regular basis. This is where the Special Collections is housed, and this is where the collection I'm talking about is located. Right now, the Morrow Library is experiencing a little bit of change. The accredited government depository that we've had for almost 100 years is moving from this library to the Drinko Library. One of the commitments that we make when we become a depository for the federal government is to ensure that as many people can access the collection as possible. And with the special emphasis in the Morrow Library, and actually some accessibility issues just due to age, we feel that it's really our obligation to make sure that those materials are in a place where more people can get to them safely. So they have moved to the Drinko Library, or will be moving. We started that process. And then that will free up some space actually for the archives, which has grown exponentially in the last couple of years. So one of the things that I thought was kind of fun about the archive is that there was an amazing person, or people, certainly more than one person because this collection goes back to the 50s, ensuring that numerous topics were covered from the newspaper on a regular basis. If you had affiliation with the research process, then you remember that the Morrow Library had a vertical file at one time. When I came to Marshall in 1995, it was actually one of my jobs to contribute to the vertical file. And I was assigned to go through the newspapers and clip out. And of course, we had more than one copy of the newspaper, so I wasn't cutting the newspaper that the students would have access to. But, cutting up the clippings and making sure that I index them and place them in a file so that people could find that information. So this collection is an extensive version of that type of collection, an old vertical file, which now we don't really need because we have the internet. But because of this type of collection, this is a treasure trove. These are things that you will not necessarily find on the internet, and certainly not readily, because a lot of these things are extremely unique to the articles of the Herald-Dispatch and also the local area. Now, they didn't just limit what they were collecting in the vertical file to just Huntington or Marshall or the local region. They also included noteworthy issues that occurred at the national level. There's a lot of information about political issues, crime, figures from history is just amazing. And you can pretty much find something about just about anything. So I strongly encourage you all to consider utilizing this collection. Now, as you can see, it's kind of stacked up in the hallway. That is temporary. The librarians really didn't have space to locate this, but they wanted to use it immediately. And rather than place it in storage that was not accessible to the public, they devised a plan in concert with our safety director. He made sure that it was okay to do this, to place them against the wall of one of the large hallways in the back. So it is accessible to the public today. If you came to the Morrow Library, even while I'm talking, a librarian would be thrilled to assist you in finding whatever you need from this collection. So that's kind of cool. What I also thought was tremendous, and you know, it's very possible that they had a bona fide librarian at some point in the lifespan of this collection assist with this, but if they didn't, they're still amazing because the indexing is impeccable. The individuals who compiled this index ensured that everything had a numbering system that is very intuitive so that you could locate something based on what drawer it's in and also by date. And from within the little folders in their Cardex, they also did cross-referencing. So if there was an article about a certain topic that appeared maybe 5 or 6 times in 5 different years, they referenced that item so that you can locate that either in the drawers or in the actual newspaper where it appeared. So as you can see, this is a researcher's dream come true, because the individuals, whether they were professional librarians or not, doesn't matter. They had indexing down to a T and were absolutely amazing in setting this up originally and then maintaining it as awesomely as they did. So I'm just blown away, and I'm really thrilled that they took such time and care. So just, you know, as I said, we just got this in the summer, and boom, already students especially have been utilizing the collection. Also, some of our local historians, and of course, Jim Casto has been a regular visitor, which we really, really enjoy. And already in the file to be filed area, there were some negatives, because this collection also includes, in addition to the clippings and prints from the newspaper that were used for the articles, are also the negatives. So again, amazing treasure, because certainly, you know, they're going to use one picture for the story, but there might actually be 10 more photographs on the reel inside a folder that might be essential to somebody's research about that particular topic in the future. So, wow, I just can't say. I know I'm going to be a little bit silly about being so enthusiastic, but it sincerely blew me away when I started utilizing this collection and had an opportunity to compile my own fun stuff to talk to you all today. Here's just an example of how the negatives are organized. And again, you know, the indexer was amazing. They made sure that the names, places, organizations, events, buildings, et cetera, were listed very, very carefully and cross-referenced so that you can locate additional information. And then there were also some fun things. In the office, they had several of the front page and noteworthy events framed, and they were so kind to give those to us as well. So when this collection has a more permanent home that is more aesthetically pleasing to the public, we'll have an opportunity to hang some nice things to make it a very, very comfortable and welcoming area. And then also when we received this collection, yes, it was impeccably indexed, but there were some additional things that the librarians have not had an opportunity to go through very thoroughly yet, but they gave us additional boxes of information, including boxes and boxes of photographs. And we are grateful that on the back of every photograph, there is information as to when it was used in a specific article, and of course, information of who's in the picture and, you know, what was the title of the article and when it appeared in the newspaper. So that's also a treasure trove that has really yet to be processed. And as soon as we have full staff, which we're hoping will be soon, because I'm sure some of you are aware, every every department on campus has had some retirements and individuals leaving for various and sundry reasons. I don't know, pandemic kind of helps that. And we're currently down 2 librarians. So we got fingers crossed that very, very soon we'll be able to fill those positions, and those are underway. So if you get an opportunity, jot this down, but I will be sending this presentation to Elizabeth so she can share it with you. But we strongly, strongly encourage you all to please make an appointment, because you want to maximize your time with us. Let the librarian know in advance what it is that you want to look for, and they will pull some items for you before you come. And then when you're there, they will assist you in retrieving items and locating copies and whatever else you need for your research topic. And of course, that library and the Drinko Library and also the library on the South Charleston campus are open to the public. When we're open, anyone in the community can come to our facilities and utilize our facilities. Through this program, of course, you have access to the libraries, and we're thrilled that all of you are affiliated with the group so that you can even check out materials if you need to. So you saw that little pile of pictures on top of the file cabinet. That was my first foray into, wow, what is in this collection? And I literally, picked up the information that said Miss Nellie on it, and saw this amazing photograph and was blown away because I recognized that house. I drive by that house every single day. I live in the West End, and when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I know that house. I found it on Google and was able to locate a picture of what it looks like today. And for me, that's kind of a fun thing. Having been a West End native for, 30 years now, I really am fascinated by the homes, especially the historic ones, and I want to know more about their history and the origin of how, what else was here, what was not here. And it was really fun to see an old picture of what this house looked prior to the porch being erected, and literally there not being anything else around it. So that was kind of cool. And as you can see, on the back of that photograph gave us information as to about when it was taken, where it's located, and then who it was about. In addition to that photograph, there were also a few pictures of the interior from that time period, and of course the woman who lived there, one of the people who lived there. And I can just imagine this house, I know, is owned by a former Marshall professor who is an amazing woman, and I know that she has maintained that property. I've never been in it, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and truly, as a Huntington historical location, it's really awesome that the owners take such amazing care of it. So another topic, I was just, looking in the files. I pulled from 1985 something about the Great West Virginia Flood. And again, as you can see, this is a vertical file. So what is in the folder will be the actual clippings from the newspaper from that date. And 9 times out of 10, and I looked in several folders, the print that was used will also be included. So if you're doing a project or for your own, needs, you want to scan some images or take pictures, because now our phones actually do a pretty good job of scanning things. We do have a scanner in the facility, and we can help you retrieve copies of those items, or we can help you retrieve digital copies. So you can have a print copy or a digital copy of whatever it is that you are researching on your journey. And then again, love it that so many classes are already using this collection extensively. The to be filed folder or basket is actually pretty full because towards the end of the last semester, several classes we're utilizing the collection to write papers and to, support speeches and other things that the students were doing in class. As you can see, there are a lot of folders that relate to Cabell County specifically, and so there's lots about the Board of Education, the County Commission, local government. There are lots of materials relating to social justice and issues that took place. You saw the photograph negative of the White Pantry protest. That was one of the issues that several of our students came to research because of the riots that took place and some other issues that relate to the legislation that's pending and on and on and on. So it was great to give them the historical context so that they could see the actual newspaper and they could have photographs in hand that they could scan to enhance and support what they're doing in their classes, or for a community member to enhance maybe an article for the paper or for another publication or for their own personal blog or for even their own podcast. We've had individuals, actually there's several Marshall University individuals who have podcasts who are sharing information of their personal interest. So just for fun, I thought, okay, let's look up a historical person to us. And so I looked up the Langell family, Coach Langell, I'm probably not saying that correctly, and found like 5 beautiful photographs of Mrs. Langell. So they were just as excited whenever he came to town that she was coming to town. And that was kind of a surprise to me that there were so many. They were like glamour shots. I included one that's fun where they're standing outside, but there were like 2 more that were headshots of her that looked like a Hollywood actress, actually. And so having information about him coming and the young thundering herd, and then subsequent games and developing the football team, you know, all of that is very, very relevant to individuals who are especially interested in Huntington history. So it was fun for me. I know several of you personally, and you know that my parents also went to Marshall, and they were here in the late 60s and up to 1970. And one of the things that Mom and I used to do a lot is go to Camden Park just to get an ice cream, walk around, and just have fun. And Camden Park means a lot to me because of that, as very, very fond memories. So I loved it when I found this amazing Camden Park folder. This is not even the whole thing. This is just a smidge of what is in that folder that includes these amazing photographs that, you know, based on the car, I'm going to guess is probably from the 70s maybe, mid to late 70s. And then several of the other photographs that show us some of the rides that are no longer there. You know, the paddle wheel boat that was so amazing. I do recall that as a childhood memory, and sadly it's not there anymore. But this was a lot of fun to kind of go down memory lane and see what Camden Park was many years ago and read a little bit more about the history of it. I had forgotten, I knew this at one time, but had forgotten that there's an Indian mound in Camden Park. And so that was like poof, because this was a memory that, you know, had escaped me. So it was really cool to read about that, when the local group was trying to preserve it to make sure that it would not be damaged in any way. And then another thing that's fun to me is shopping at Stone & Thomas, especially at Christmas time when they used to decorate so beautifully. And of course, they were also at the mall in addition to being downtown and then ultimately moved. And so it was sad to me when they moved, but I love it that now that Marshall University is utilizing that building, that they have preserved the iconic Stone & Thomas front for the awning. But this was kind of fun. Local high school students who were involved in business activities got an opportunity to be models and with a program that Stone & Thomas used to sponsor to promote young business future professionals. That was kind of fun. And then there's just like crazy miscellany. So, you know, I found that you could get, you know, disco lessons at one time. Preserving a former historical motel, something about the Marshall University rugby team from the 80s, and then this really fun picture of one of the trolleys in front of a store that is no more. So all of these, I just love old photographs. They just bring me joy. And then many of you might recall this was a huge event. Of course, when the Civic Center was built, they were very excited for the king of rock and roll to be their very first concert. And sadly, he passed away before he was able to come to perform in Huntington, West Virginia. So I noticed that part of the contents of this particular folder, of course, include these great photographs, but also press kit material that must have been sent to the newspaper with specific photographs, I guess, that they send in advance. And it's kind of cool that all of that is included. So again, you know, this the local newspaper into perpetuity. The actual newspaper is housed in microfilm. So we do have the full run of the, was it called the Herald Advisor, or the Herald Advertiser? You all will have to correct me because I get those two confused. And you wouldn't believe it, my first job was actually to be the person who prepared all of the newspapers in the state of West Virginia for WVU to photo duplicate them for their microfilm reader printer. And I used to know all the newspapers off by heart, but now that's gone too because that was a long time ago. But that was my first library job. So we're housing that material in microfilm, and it is somewhat kludgy to retrieve sometimes. We don't expect the patrons to self-service. We assist you. And so should you want a better copy of one of these articles, or if there's something referenced that you want to find in the newspaper, then an archivist/librarian will jump to assist you in retrieving that item and help you get the copy from the microfilm. So as I said, this is not how we actually house the materials. This is the vertical file that we use for research purposes, and then we can lead you to a more pristine copy of that particular article if you need it. So for my personal, just my little quest here, I had fun perusing to provide you with some examples. But I live in this house in the West End, and it's a unique house from the Chicago World's Fair. You heard Elizabeth mention that is of interest to me. But I'm also very interested in Janet Bromley. She was not a super close friend, but we had a wonderful acquaintance, and that's who we bought the house from. And so I wanted to know more about her dad. And I used the collection to look up Darwin Ensign and to find out more about him and his business. And it was really, really cool that there were numerous articles about Ensign Electric. Of course, if you're familiar with the West End, that building is still standing. And then, of course, his obituary was included. And what brought me so much joy is to learn more about the people who live there, because it is quite evident from living in that house how much they loved it. Every detail is original to the Chicago World's Fair model home that I understand they went to when they were newlyweds, bought the plans, and came back to Huntington, West Virginia to build this house. And it's just really cool. Everything, even down to the doorknobs, are identical to what the model home had. So it was kind of cool to know more about Janet's dad and see how much, you know, they meant to the community as well as a local business family. So Cleo, all right, our tie, coming back to Cleo, you've got the stationary vertical file to flip through. You might get a little ink on your hands. It's okay. It might be a little dusty because, as you notice, you know, after 70 years of collecting materials, the file cabinets were a little rough. But, you know, be prepared. We've got all kinds of stuff that will help wipe that ink off your hands after you've flipped through numerous files. But this is another way that you can also discover history, and it's really fun that the print archive, many of the resources that we talked about today, and some of the things that I discovered in the Huntington Herald-Dispatch collection are actually also featured in digital format through the Clio app. When it first started, I remember how incredibly proud Dr. Trowbridge was that there were 500 entries. And by the end of the year, there were like 5,000. And as the years have progressed, as you can see, now there's upwards of, oh gosh, I'm wearing terrible glasses, but there's almost 40,000 items listed in the system now. anyone can add to the Clio app. Local historians all across America have been adding content, and actually other countries as well, and even some international sites, tying location and the sense of place to history. I have a little video here, and I'm hoping it's going to run, but if it crashes and burns, we will simply go on to the next, and I will provide Elizabeth the link, but let's give it a try. I love that video. It always even gives me a little bit of a chill because it's really sends a message home how important it is to retain history. Whoop, except we don't want to watch it again. Whoop, sorry about that. All right, let's see. There we go. Great. So see how technology doesn't always cooperate. It could also be user error, which is a normal thing for me.
Dr. Brooks,
Yes.
several of us did not get the sound from the video.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. I will make sure that Elizabeth has the link so that you can click on it from home. Because I'll be honest with you, my technology skills, I don't know how to fix that.
If
So
you
we'll
send
make
it
sure.
to me, I'll send it out to everyone.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for letting me know. Darn, I'm sorry you weren't able to hear it. But it's a wonderful voiceover that essentially describes very poignantly how important it is for us to be connected, both digitally and, of course, with our print collections. And what's really fun is, of course, we featured some of our librarians and, of course, Dr. Trowbridge and some of our students who have since become librarians. So we love to be an incubator to help get people excited about professions and archives and librarianship. So it's a win-win. When you're in the Clio app, which you can use from a tablet or a mobile device of any sort, or even just from your computer, it's super easy. You just type in your location, which can also be a zip code in the first box, and then whatever it is you're looking for in the second box. You can also just open the app and, using the map that has these little pins, look around where you are and hit a pin with your finger, and it'll tell you what you're standing around. So you have a couple of ways that you can find materials within within Clio. When you utilize the search boxes, then it will retrieve a list for you, and then it will also give you a navigational toolbar that allows you to limit your search. So you can type in a few more things to make your search more relevant, because sometimes it doesn't find it immediately, or maybe, like I got the name wrong and it didn't find it right away. So as you can see, if I scroll down, I can see the Huntington State Hospital or the Mildred Mitchell Bateman Hospital. And then more information about the location, including, the address, the hours of operation, their phone number, some indexing tags, and some additional information like who created the entry. Everything is cited. I'm super proud of David Trowbridge. He's done a fantastic job of employing graduate assistants and other individuals who work very, very hard to ensure that these entries are accurate, that the grammar and everything is correct, and also that the materials that are included are either in the, freely usable copyright-wise, or that they've sought permission, and also that they are citing things properly. So there's a wealth of information out there, and ensuring that this content is legitimately cited and correct is also a huge commitment on the part of David and his team of individuals that ensure that this is a teaching educational tool. So for fun, I just went back to the mound topic for Camden Park, and poof, yes, I was able to find this on Clio and read more about it and see a few more images. And then same thing with Camden Park, extensive information about Camden Park on Clio. As you can see, it uses the Google Maps. So if I were actually standing right there, I could take the mobile device that I'm using, just like they did in the video, and see in real time the location of where I am and the monuments and artifacts and whatever around me. And more photographs that have been compiled by individuals who have contributed, or by the individual that originated the article to begin with. So it's really fun. So it's kind of crowdsourced encyclopedia that is place-based, using Google Map Engine to put you physically in the location that you're seeking. The other thing that's really cool about Clio is they've worked really hard with local educators to create walking tours that give you historic information for these various topics. And as you can see, there is a huge array of things that are relevant to Huntington and things that have happened here through the years. One of the most popular ones, interestingly, is a Spanish influenza tour of the Spring Hill Cemetery. Sadly, very timely. Of course, you can see that there's information about Guyandotte, African American history, the Underground Railroad. Marshall University has a walking tour that I know that Recruitment and Admissions shares on a regular basis. All kinds of amazing stuff that I hope you have an opportunity to look at. And it's also very similar to if you were, at MoMA, and you get the little headset with the cassette player and you go to the different works of art. It's similar to that because you can use a text-to-speech option in the system, so that you aren't disrupting your walk by having to read something. You can listen to it as you go through the walking tour to the various sites of that tour. So very, very fun. So again, going back to our awesome Herald Dispatch.
Dr. Brooks?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but before you leave Clio, I just wanted a personal observation. My grandson came to Marshall for the Regents Bachelor of Arts program, maybe about four years ago or so. And in taking his class for his Regents with Dr. Trowbridge on African American Studies, had to, as part of the assignments, do 3 entries into Clio. And it was just fascinating to walk alongside with him, just to learn, as he was engaged in that, and his entry and how he had to study it and prepare it and do all the research and enter it actually on Clio. And I've been real proud of the fact that my grandson has 3 entries on Clio. But it's been fascinating, and it's been fascinating in all, and even traveling. We were introducing it to my sister-in-law in outside of Dallas and Texas, and and just how they could see the things around them even and on their travels. So
that is amazing. I love it.
But it was really exciting to watch him experience and just his learning in terms of doing research, and then of course just the whole use of the app itself. So sorry.
Outstanding. That's fantastic. I too have had some students do them. And it is a tremendous undertaking. So I can just imagine that he worked really hard to make sure the entries were accurate and the photographs were good. I mean, going out to the site, making sure the photographs are, aesthetically pleasing and informational. I mean, it's not easy. So I commend that awesome activity, and it's so cool that he's been part of the database from its inception. So very, very fun. Okay, going back to the Herald Dispatch piece with our tie-in to Clio, I thought, okay, there's this huge box of amazing photographs. One of them just happened to be of the public library, and of course, as a librarian, I'm always interested. It's the busman's holiday. Anytime I go anywhere, any college campus, I check out the library first, or any city, and sometimes driving down the road, if the windows are open, I can smell the library. I'm sure that's not a weird thing. At least I hope it's not. So, of course, the picture I pulled out of the box is the Cabell County Public Library, and its former incarnation as the Carnegie Library Building, and I'm sure many of you know the history of the philanthropy of putting Carnegie libraries in almost every city in the country, an amazing feat. And awesome. There was a tie-in to Clio immediately, wonderful information, great photographs, and the background to even when it was placed on the Register of Historic Places. And then a fairly recent picture of the Huntington Junior College, which is what it is being used for today. So awesome. Love that. Another wonderful Huntington landmark is Old Huntington High, which my dad did his student teaching in back in the day. A lot of people may have attended school there or taught there. So, and now you might utilize it for other reasons. And its current incarnation as a Renaissance Center. So it was really neat to find this fantastic entry on Clio, all about it, the history. Again, some fabulous photographs of the school. You can see there's a little car there, looks like a Model T almost. They go back quite a ways. And then how it looks today and how it's being used today, which I'm just thrilled that we've been able to preserve so many wonderful landmarks in Huntington because of such great commitments of individuals that are owners or from the city as well. And then this, of course, is a wonderful landmark, especially for individuals that are railroad enthusiasts. I love this building, and, it kind of makes me sad that now our train station is an itty-bitty little teeny cinder block building on the other side of the tracks, because train travel is kind of a cool thing, and I wish we had more of it. Maybe with our infrastructure initiatives in the United States, we'll see that come back some. But you can see from the cars about the time that this photograph was taken, what would that be, around the late 50s maybe? And then a fantastic entry in Clio that probably one of Dr. Trowbridge's students took a great deal of time to ensure was accurate and extensive. And we do appreciate that. And then this is not a super recent image, but it's fairly recent to show you what the building is like today, and they've taken great care of it. Another one that, I always used to go see my nurse practitioner here, and, many, many years ago. And of course, the St. Mary's building was also the St. Mary's School of Nursing. It's kind of cool to see the nuns supervising the construction in their old habits that, most nuns don't wear those anymore, in 1946. And of course, the history of how Catholic hospitals have kind of evolved, especially in the state of West Virginia. They used to be very active running, the diocese would run them, and the nuns would be the chief administrators. And of course, that has diminished over time with how healthcare administration has changed. But it was fun to see the aerial view of the hospital and see the same, entrance that we saw in that former photograph as well. So it just is kind of fun. And then this is kind of a sad picture of that portion of the building being torn down in 2013. But, time marches on and things change. But it's great that we have preserved images to show us what things were like previously. Another building that I drive by practically every day is the Science Building on the campus of Marshall. And again, going by the cars, we're looking at what, late 40s maybe? And information about the building that also includes an audio file by one of the faculty members who has since retired, but who was part of the biology department for many, many years. She narrates portion of her experience. And that's also a wonderful addition to Clio. In addition to being able to listen to the text-to-speech option when you're on a tour, you can also listen to personalized audio tracks. The students have also interviewed individuals that may have a touchstone to many of these events or these buildings and locations, and it's wonderful to hear some of the information in their own voice. There are several individuals who were instrumental in maybe historical events, like, we talked about the white pantry issue and protest. There are social justice crusaders and other individuals that are essential to our local history, and they have been interviewed. There are lots of wonderful clips of oral histories that are in the system as well. And there's a picture, a real pretty picture of the building at Sunset, which, again, Marshall University has maintained the campus and the buildings beautifully to preserve their history in addition to the physical facilities. So what a wonderful journey. I had a blast. I thought I would only be there maybe 20, 30 minutes. 2.5 hours later, I emerged with the ink and the dust and, some newspaper in my hair. I loved it. I really, really hope that you all take an opportunity to come utilize that collection for whatever reason you would like to pursue. Doesn't matter. We would love to have you. Probably would be wise to wait until the virus kind of subsides, because we're in the thick of it with students coming back to campus currently. And as Elizabeth mentioned at the start of the meeting, if you logged on a little bit early, we did get a sobering report from our Rotary meeting yesterday, in which members of the Cabell Huntington Health Department do anticipate the next 6 weeks being quite dicey. So if you're thinking about coming to see us before that time, certainly we're all masked and we practice social distancing, and we still love to have you, but do be safe and make a decision that's best for you and your family and your health concerns, just to be on the safe side. So I did want to make this plug too. The librarians in the special collections are superheroes, in my opinion. Of course, I think all librarians are superheroes, but the individuals who have been able to curate and preserve some of these precious, precious artifacts and materials are truly Cape Crusaders. And I'm sure many of you are aware, because we have a librarian who dresses up as Batgirl. Batgirl was a librarian, so she's our superhero of choice. But the individuals who work over there, Professor Lori Thompson, Professor Lindsay Harper, and hopefully we're about to hire 2 more archivists, are there to serve not just the Marshall community, but also the Huntington community. And we really, really hope we see you. And at this point, does anyone have any questions?
It's not a question. This is Freddie Tanner. I am really excited because both my parents and I grew up in Huntington. My dad worked for the Herald Dispatch. He was a sports editor. And in going through his things, I know there are things that I can contribute to you. And it's always worried me that I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't want to get rid of them. I want them to be someplace, and now they will be. I'm really excited, and it will prod me to go ahead and go through the pictures and all that, now that I know they have a place to be.
That's amazing and fantastic. Please do let us know. And you don't have to, sometimes people are embarrassed. They're like, oh, I'm not really sure I should bring this box over because I don't really know what's in it. Make sure there's nothing special in there that you want to keep. But if there's anything that you want to divest yourself of, the team over there will make sure that it is indexed properly and put to good use for research and curriculum support purposes.
I will wait until COVID has subsided, maybe summer.
Perfect timing. It's also a lot quieter then, and they'll be able to give you more individualized attention. It's a great program, and I'm sure Dr. Hensley, we appreciate that through her former department, having the public history certificate has brought us a lot of traffic. Students who are interested in learning about public history take an archives class, and the archivists teach that every semester, and it's so exciting to see their faces light up when they get a box of something that they're not even sure what's in there, and then they learn all about the history of the collection and the person and what happened and what artifacts mean to the university or what was happening at the time. It's really special. It's also been a wonderful way to create historians and librarians. So that program especially has been extremely valuable to preserving history in this way.
Monica, I just wanted to say this was a lot of fun. This was just a great presentation. Thank you. And, you know, I was a consumer of the services of Special Collections for years and loved it. My students loved it. And this was a great experience for a retiree.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. So come see it in the flesh whenever we're not all germified.
Will do.
Dr. Brooks, you mentioned when you're talking about the Herald Dispatch and receiving from them. Did I clarify? Did you say that that what was amazing was that they had done a lot of the cataloging of the material?
Did. Yes, they did all of it.
So what you were showing early on was these awesome people that they had used in their cataloging.
Correct.
So
yes.
You found that, I'm sure, professionally just fascinating then, as you know, that how they indexed. Am I understanding that right then?
Correct. Yes, I am well, of course, you know, just like any profession, you know, they might have 20 librarians, but they're all different, and we all go a different path. And my path was to be an instruction and reference librarian. So that was my career choice. So I'm the person that's, you know, like what we do today. This is what I did in my career. But the archivists and catalogers go a different path to do exactly that type of work that you saw those pictures from, and they go to school for that. And so for an individual, you know, I don't even know if they had a professional librarian. I kind of guess that they didn't. But because of the nature of their work, they were so meticulous that we have this tremendous, you know, 70+ year body of work. Wow. That, you know, I don't think the Library of Congress could have done better. So I'm just super impressed, and it's not something we would change. You know, a lot of times when we receive collections, we might index it ourselves. There was zero need to do any facilitation of processing or indexing, other than, you know, making sure that we put it back the way it was, because it is so impeccably indexed. Now, you know, we might discover, okay, we can't find this or we can't find that. That's human nature, and that would happen in Trinco or Morrow anyway, with, you know, because librarians are human. But it really is great that they literally were able to repopulate. They had to take everything out of the cabinets in order to move it here. But once they put the cabinets up and put the folders back in the cabinet, that's all they had to do. Poof, and it was immediately accessible to the public, like at the end of the day. So it was pretty awesome.
Thank you for your presentation.
Dr. Brooks, it was excellent presentation. Learned a lot of things. And what I'm thinking is, we've always had newspapers and print papers, but as we see, some communities are losing their print papers, or they're becoming less popular. What do you see happening in the next quarter of a century with the kind of material that you've collected and that's so wonderful? Will we still have that available?
I really do believe that we will still have it. I absolutely do. And I also believe that we will still continue to have newspapers, even though we won't have a lot of them. I mentioned earlier that my first job was to prepare newspapers for the photo duplication at WVU as part of their commitment to the state. They had the only microfilm printers, not printers, but microfilm photography units. I'm probably calling it the wrong thing. But they took up my entire office. They were huge. And I had to iron the newspapers and lay them on the machine so that the technician could photograph it for the microfilm retrieval. And I remember I had something like 96 newspapers from all these little places, you know, the big newspapers and the little newspapers that I kept track of from the state. I went to visit not too long ago, and my entire department had been decimated. There were only about 15 newspapers as opposed to the 90 plus that I used to maintain. And they were down to one machine, and it was the same machine. And they thought they were so cool. They were like, Monica, this is a really cool artifact that I bet you've never seen. I was like, no, I used to have to do that. It's not going to go away, but there are certainly fewer. And that is a little frightening from my perspective of, you know, being concerned about mis and disinformation and, of course, bias in our, you know, what we consume. So I'm kind of sad about that. But I absolutely believe that libraries will continue to have the mission of preserving, and in 25 years we will still have a thriving archives program, and probably we will have an entire area that's dedicated to electronic archives, because we do have a position for a digital archivist that we had a person in who left us for WVU, but we're happy that she, you know, made a career move closer to her family. But there is a position dedicated to that so that they can preserve the material that I never print in my capacity as a dean at a university in this current time. So I just have to save it. And then she has to figure out how to read it. So whenever we hire that person, they're going to have their hands full. But they go to school for this, and it's part of the contemporary library science curriculum.
Thank you.
That was Elizabeth, and she gave us a mini course on archiving. It was wonderful, very, very well received. And I reached out to her, and she moved. But I'm like you said, happy for her.
Yes. When Elizabeth is, you know, we're involved in the West Virginia Library Association, so, you know, the librarians get around. And when she worked at the Ohio County Public Library, I was aware of her, and I knew that she was anxious to move into academic libraries. But, you know, she and her significant other are from the area, and they would, you know, they want to be close to home. So we still correspond, and I'm sure we'll still work on some fun projects together at the state level. But I was jealous, and I told her to go check out my old department and say hi to everybody.
Oh.
So, and they received her very well. They were so excited that she was coming, and they've been treating her right. So I'm happy.
Our loss is their gain.
Yeah, we're very sad, but, you know, obviously, you know, people who are graduating from library school in the last 5 to 10 years are receiving this type of education to not just retrieve, but, you know, find ways to index digital content that has never been printed. So not something I want to do. So I'm happy that someone else is going to do it. I'm just going to hand over a hard drive when I retire and say, have fun. So.
Well, thankfully, that's not for a while. So
Yeah.
you're not there yet. Nope,
Yeah.
I'm close. Any other comments or questions, observations?
I was curious, how did Dr. Tobridge come up with the name Clio for his archival database?
As the inspiration, I think, and Frances can probably correct me, isn't she the muse, the
Yes.
historical muse?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe Dr. Trowbridge, Dr. Cleo, was one of the speakers prior to my coming on as the coordinator for this program. Maybe it's time to have him back for a refresher course. I don't know.
He's also gone. He moved on. He's at another institution now.
You know?
Yeah, bummer.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, he's been
Well,
gone for about 1.5 years.
what?
Oh, I wonder. Wow.
He's still on the, okay, so I reached out to him a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard from him because he's probably not checking the Marshall email.
Probably, yeah, he's probably by
But
now.
he's still on the website for the history department.
Well, I think
Hey.
I think he's actually perhaps considered to be on leave.
Okay.
He's in Kansas.
So there's a chance he's coming back, Francis?
I don't know. I just think his official status
It's
this
just,
semester is that he's on leave.
so,
But
so his information's still there because it's not,
right,
right.
but
Got it.
I don't know what his plans are. But he is in Kansas.
Oh, well,
Uh,
darn.
Maybe he'll
Yeah,
boomerang.
Speaking of Cleo, just recently, with the uh, January 6th remembrances, the one of the I'll refrain from talking about the networks, but one of the networks, of course, did a wonderful um, um, just review and had interviews and so forth, and their background was in the Statuary Hall, where in Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol, is the statue of the muse goddess Cleo. And it was referenced that every politician, senator, congressman, congressperson, people who tour the Capitol, go into Statuary Hall, are reminded of that, of how Cleo, the muse, the goddess of history, is watching over everything we're doing. It was just
Wow.
but that I thought, Cleo, oh my gosh, that's right. And then I remembered that's how the app got named and selected.
That's cool.
So, Monica, this is Mari Mufsend. I do infectious diseases, and your comment about not needing any librarians anymore brings back the comments that were made in the early 1940s when penicillin was introduced for the treatment of pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia. And it was generally believed at that point that there would be no further need for infectious diseases physicians in the coming years. And as you said in your slide, nothing could be further from the truth.
You're not kidding. Wow. That's amazing. I can't even believe it. And as you know, we have that amazing medical history collection that was donated by the Hoffman family. And periodically, apparently, it has one of the most extensive collections of books on leprosy. And at least once a year, the CDC or some other agency will contact us for material. So it's kind of cool to have that collection as well.
Yes, it is. So
Yeah,
penicillin was used for the treatment of bacterial pneumonia, pneumococcal pneumonia, which was 80% of people who got pneumococcal pneumonia and the organism spread to their blood, which would be known as invasive disease, died in the 1930s. And then in early 1940s, penicillin came along, and just a small amount of penicillin cured the disease. I mean, and because the war was on, penicillin was being recycled from the urine of patients treated with it and cleaned up and used again. And we were only using a few thousand units a day for the treatment of pneumonia, which was effective. Today, for that same disease, we use several million units of penicillin for the treatment.
Oh my. Wow.
Hey, Monica, this is Carolyn Bagby. I know this is may not be part of your official presentation, but why don't you tell them about some of the other special collections that are in the Morrow Library?
Well, we are super proud that probably one of the most popular collections that we have, of course, is the General Chuck Yeager Archive. And if you've had an opportunity to come to the second floor of the Morrow Library, we have a wonderful display area. And thanks to a lot of Carolyn's work to help us retrieve some of these materials and also the support, financial support for renovations. It's a beautiful place to sit and read and also review, because now that, sadly, of course, General Chuck Yeager passed away recently, but there was a clause in his will that we could not allow the public to utilize his archive until after his death. And so now anyone from the public can come and, retrieve photographs and clippings, which he also had a clipping service in regard to various publications when he was mentioned, and also some amazing papers that are affiliated with his life's work and his career. So that is an especially exciting collection. And then Carolyn also helped us get the Nelson Bond collection, who was a innovator as far as being one of the premier science writers at the time, science fiction. He wrote several teleplays for television and also numerous pulp fiction kind of sci-fi materials and magazines. And so we have a room dedicated to his collection so that you can see many of the works that he did, and also a recreation of the office that he typically worked in, and that's a really fun thing to look at. And then we've also obtained a tremendous resource under the Marvin Stone collection, which, if you're not aware of Marvin Stone, in the School of Journalism, he is, of course, a graduate of Marshall University. He was one of the very first Washington lobbyists who kind of helped pave the way for that type of work. And he also worked on several political campaigns for several very famous politicos. And those photographs and letters and archives are amazing too, and have been used extensively by political science students and whatnot. That's just a teensy little smidge of what we have. Of course, we have the Rosanna Blake Library of the Confederacy, which is dedicated to all things Civil War, and there's incredible artifacts and resources in that collection as well. And over the years, we've had amazing Blake librarians who have helped curate additional materials to add to that collection. You all might know Jack Dickinson, who is, of course, a prolific writer who's done amazing publications from that collection. Sadly, that position has been open for 2 years because he retired during the pandemic and we've not been able to fill it. But I can't reveal who is going into that position, but we're very, very excited about our upcoming hire. And when that individual is in place, we'll make sure we do some PR. And when he's up to speed, we will be able to receive visitors again and researchers who are interested in Civil War history. So a very, very exciting time for the libraries. We are in the process of recruiting a couple other positions as well that have been on hold for about 2 years. So we're emerging from the pandemic in some fashion as well, and able to bring back some of our talent to continue some of the work that we're doing in that area.
I understand you also have a special collection for the Marshall Lab School.
Yes. Thank you very much for mentioning that.
I was privileged to attend 1st through 12th grade, and I'm sure I have things to give you.
Oh, awesome. So that's a great plug for, before, you decide you're going to ship a box off to Goodwill or drop it in, the garbage if you think it's not something that you want to keep. You never know. You guys never know. Something that maybe you've looked at on your shelf for years and years that you don't think is essential might be the only copy of whatever it is, and an archives librarian will be thrilled to get it. So do contact us, and thank you very much for mentioning that. That's tremendous.
When I was getting my master's in history, and Dr. Francis Hensley was my thesis advisor, and I was a member of the Junior League. I wrote about the Junior League, and I went into our attic and found an amazing collection of primary documents. And so we took them to the library. They're archived in the library. And I'm so thankful for that, because a few years ago, the building was sold, and I suspect that no one would have cared. And they were going to just deteriorate in that attic. And so I'm so thankful that we have all these documents going back to when the Junior League was formed in Huntington in the 1920s.
Wow.
So it's just amazing what you all do. And I wanted to also write about the Women's Club of Guyandotte, because my grandmother was a member. And I reached out to the lady that had the documents. I I really, really, really wanted to see them and write about them. And she said they were in the attic of her husband's business and she just wouldn't let me see them. And sadly, that business went up in flames, is gone. And it broke my heart because the business next door went up. It was Moore's Hardware that had them. And and they were next door and the building was leveled. So
Sorry to hear that.
Oh, I know. I wanted to see them. I wanted to write about it. And so thank you for, just thank you for all you all do. And like, Freddie said, she's got stuff that she can bring and be forever preserved for
Never know.
generations to come.
Just this year, even though we're in a pandemic, they have received or had commitments to receive the arrest records that go all the way back to the 19 teens of the Huntington Police Department. So we're working on logistics to bring those into the building. The Criminal Justice Department is thrilled because we have several faculty who do research and demographic research and other types of research relating to that. We received the ACF archives. I'm sure you're aware that that building was being vacated, and the archivist went and retrieved a truckload of stuff from them. Another treasure trove, and of course the Herald-Dispatch has been a huge archive. We're talking with the Woody Williams folks in the hopes that we can retrieve his papers. And so, there are just numerous areas where we've been able to retrieve, someone's life papers or family photographs or business materials to help, future researchers and students and faculty who are pursuing educational endeavors. So, it's important work.
Do you sort through them and do you keep a lot? And if there's things you can put on film, or does everything that's relevant stay relevant in its physical form?
So that's a good question, and it might be a little shocking to you all, but they actually don't keep everything.
It'd be hard to.
Right, they do go through, and they have, with their years of experience and knowledge of, hopefully the subject matter or types of materials that they can keep that they know are unique, that aren't duplicated somewhere else. Or like in the case of, here's another amazing collection, we have Ken Heckler's materials, former Secretary of State and former support for the President Truman administration. He had numerous boxes of duplicates of his materials. And so the archivist painstakingly, and it took actually more than a year, went through those materials and they kept the best version of an item that they knew was unique, and they discarded the duplicates. And as things are needed, they will digitize. They don't digitize just to digitize, because I'm sure you can imagine that would be a tremendous undertaking that would never be over. But when a patron, for example, the Chuck Yeager Foundation, they wanted some images, so we just decided to digitize the whole box. Because we knew that would be relevant to what project they were working on and something that they would use quite frequently. And so they make a decision as to, okay, is it going to be more expeditious to go ahead and digitize this whole thing, or should we wait? For Marshall University Archives, they are systematically digitizing full runs of things like faculty senate meetings, Marshall catalogs, our yearbooks. They were done several years ago. That's probably one of the things that gets hit on our site more than anything else. Plane crash photographs and information, and Marshall University yearbooks. So that's kind of fun. But for the registrar, many, many times she may have to verify something that might be from 40 years ago. And because we have digitized the catalogs from those times, she's able to just go bloop, 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 and get it herself. It's kind of fun.
Are the things that are digitized, are those available for people to just log in and see?
They're on the web. We have an institutional repository called Marshall Digital Scholar, and there's a button for it on the Marshall University Library homepage. And what's fun about Marshall Digital Scholar is it is also indexed through Google Scholar. So if you just do a Google search, you might pull up minutes from a faculty senate meeting if it's relevant to whatever topic you're searching.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. There's something like, oh gosh, I'll probably get this wrong because I haven't looked at the number very, I didn't commit it to memory, but there are tens of thousands of resources already digitized that are unique to Marshall University offices and archives. Not, you know, we don't put any personnel materials online, obviously, but if an office, if somebody retires and we, you know, are aware of it, then the archivist will come in with a truck, a book truck, and take the boxes away. And in fact, that happened recently because IT had some turnovers, and she came and filled a giant truck. We actually made, I think, 4 trips. So,
Dr. Brooks, when I heard Elizabeth mention that her grandmother's records were lost in a fire, I'm wondering how well protected are these collections? It makes me sick to think of history lost in a fire.
right. Well, the the things that are really, really valuable are in our vault. And our vault is allegedly fireproof. All right? We don't want to test that, obviously. So there is a vault in special collections. And so there are, you know, letters between, you know, luminaries, sci-fi luminaries of the time, or Robert E. Lee, you know, things like that. Those are protected. But you're exactly right. You know, there have been tragedies in various libraries. Some of my colleagues have had fires. When I was at WVU, we had a fire in my department, the newspaper department, before I was hired, actually, and the soot damage was still there, you know, 10 years later. But that can happen, and we are very aware of that. We do have, you know, obviously normal fire suppression, but even that can be damaging because sprinklers can destroy paper.
Yeah.
And so some of our archives would be damaged. We do house all of our materials in archival type boxes that prevent additional decay. And so, you know, the things that are especially valuable are going to be housed in a box. And so, you know, there's a chance that if there is a fire and sprinklers come on, that we can dry things out. And incidentally, when libraries do have incidents like that, we have a disaster plan, and we can actually pretty much reverse water damage if we freeze the items immediately. And so that's something that we would do, and we have in our plan should that be necessary. We would rent a freezer truck or get freezer space at a local business and house materials until they are dried. You know, we freeze them and then we dry them.
Literally freeze them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, freeze them. So one of my buddies from the profession who formerly worked at West Virginia State College when I was a librarian there, Andy Corrigan, is the associate dean at Tulane. And when Katrina hit, they had 9 feet of water in their library. It just absolutely destroyed. And as you know, Tulane is a huge institution, and they had a significant number of collections in the area that had 9 feet of water. And because it was so big, they sealed the area. They put giant industrial size like tubes leading to refrigerator trucks, and they piped the frozen air into the area, and they froze everything inside the floor. They sealed it and froze everything in there to dry it up. Amazing.
Wow.
And
So
Dr.
we have ways, but it would be extremely expensive and a huge undertaking.
And in one of our discussions, haven't we talked, just one second, Dr. Wilson, haven't we discussed about when we're back in person, actually visiting the vault?
If you'd like to see the vault, we would be delighted. It's a white glove kind of environment, but we'll get a box of gloves for you
Yeah.
and bring some things out that you can see.
Go ahead, Dr.
Now,
Wilson.
Just a quick question. I mean, this is elementary. But I wanted to clarify, wanted for some clarification. So Marshall's libraries, help just understand, because the difference between the Morrow Library and the Drinko Library. Okay, I heard you allude to that earlier at the beginning.
So the Drinko Library, of course, is the newer one. It was built in 1998, and we have about 10 years worth of our current print periodicals. And then we have roughly about 150,000 volumes, mostly our current volumes. And so we consider the Drinko Library the main library, but it's more of like I guess technically it's undergraduate and graduate students, but the material that we house in this facility would be more general information. And then the material that's housed in the Morrow Library would be the special collections, which includes the university archives and several of those unique collections, plus, dozens and dozens more that I didn't mention. And then on the first floor, that's on the second floor and third floors. And then on the first floor is the government documents collection. So the government documents collection is what is coming over here to the Drinko Library, both so that government documents is more accessible to our users because the special collections hours are shorter, and also it's harder to get to if you're in a wheelchair. And then also to provide plenty of space for the archives to put all this amazing stuff that they even just got this past year.
That's helpful. Thank you. I just wanted to try to get that clear in my.
Now, there are two more libraries in the system. There's the Health Science Library in the Cabell Huntington Hospital that is run by the medical school, but we coordinate with them because we help them, with their databases and their materials. And then there's a library on the South Charleston campus of Marshall University, and that is more of a study and collaboration hub. We don't have a whole lot of books there. But we have a couple of dynamic librarians who do a lot of outreach, and that is also the home of the statewide library consortium.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions or comments before we let Dr. Brooks go today? This has been a great presentation. So much.
I've really had fun.
I must say I am very pleasantly surprised at everything I learned today. So glad to have seen it.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you again, Monica. Wow. and you did say you were going to share your slide with us, with me?
Yes,
and
I will send it.
And the Clio YouTube video, and I'll send that out to everyone. And this will also be on our YouTube channel, so everyone who couldn't be here can view it, and we can go back and revisit it because it was, wow. And then the newspaper, wow.
Amazing. Wow. We're so grateful to them. And we have told them many, many times how much we appreciate them thinking of us.
And the organization, Dr. Wilson had commented on the chat that the organization of this phenomenal collection is just outstanding.
And one more question, Monica, do you not have the old WSAZ archives also? That's one of the biggest things I remember.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Carolyn. You're so right. That is also an amazing collection. It's all the film from WSAZ, and we are digitizing that gradually. We try to do some every single day. We have a technician that when he's not working on unique projects, he's working on that. And so, in addition to the newspaper, we've got the television station, which, as many of you know, was an innovator for its time because it was the first station, right, Carolyn, that did the simulcast between Huntington and Charleston. And now many, many other stations have copied them. But that is also a tremendous collection. And we get calls from all over the country, from all different news agencies or, production companies that need, 3 seconds about the Silver Bridge or, Buffalo Creek flood or, the time that JFK, ate at Jim's Spaghetti House, whatever. There's no sound in some of them, but there's certainly the video that is very, very helpful. You know, William Shatner was here for the very first Comic-Con that Marshall University ever had. I think that was in the 80s. You know, the premiere of Rain Man downtown. I mean, it's all kinds of amazing stuff. So that's another wonderful collection that we will certainly assist any user in retrieving materials. Oh, and thanks, Carolyn, for reminding me. Another collection, which is right across the hall from the WSAZ collection, is its extensive genealogy collection. You don't think about academic libraries housing that type of material, but we were very fortunate that our former director prior to Josephine Fiddler was interested in that and collected some wonderful resources. The Lambert papers are there. So if you're a Huntingtonian who's interested in knowing more about your own genealogy, in addition to using the vast resources at the Caldwell County Public Library, you can also utilize our services. And coming up, we will be hosting a program for African American genealogy, which of course is very, very difficult to find because of the origin of many of the families that, you know, came here under slavery, sadly, and don't have a lot of information about their families. We do have some resources that can assist with that, and we have some experts who are going to help us out with that. So be on the lookout for that program, which is probably going to have to wait until after COVID because it's a hands-on type of program.
We look forward to that.
Great.
Well, thank you again. Are there any other last comments or questions before we let Dr. Brooks go?
I want to say thanks again, Monica.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very, very much. It was great seeing everyone.
All right.
One
Thank
more
you.
thing. I wish we were in person so we could give you a big hand.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for participating. This has been a really great presentation and discussion, and I'm thankful for Dr. Brooks and everyone in between. So thank you all so much.
And we
Thank
had
you.
great participation today, I think.
Yes,
Lots
yes.
of people.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
Good
encouraging.
question. Good comment.
All right, everyone. Stay safe out there. Stay away from COVID, and we'll get together again soon.